Delighted to be now joined by the former Defence Secretary, former Tory MP as well, Sir Michael Fallon. Sir Michael, a very good afternoon. Welcome. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm a Kent taxpayer as well, Jeremy, so I'm looking out for those Doge savings that are coming our way.
Well, you'll be happy about that, won't you?
I will, if they can find those savings. Sure, I think anybody would.
Good man. Good to have you on.
Good to be on.
Good. Thank you, Michael. Listen, who better than a former Defence Secretary to put today? I'm going to try and keep a straight face to you. Our Prime Minister has stood up today because it's a Monday, and he said that the government's long-awaited strategic defence review is done, and I am committed to increasing defence spending 2.5% of GDP by 2027. And then he sort of did what he usually does and got a bit airy-fairy and said, I've an ambition to hit 3% by 2034, by which time, of course, he won't be in government. From a defence point of view, this talk about nuclear-powered attack submarines and £15 billion worth of investment in a sovereign nuclear warhead programme is all well and good. But where's the money coming from? Because we're skint. All of a sudden, how is this happening, Sir Michael Fallon?
Well, they are increasing the budget, going up to 2.5% of GDP in the next couple of years. So the budget's getting bigger year by year, and that's good news. Now, the submarines, by the way, were agreed in a deal with the United States and Australia that we would build this new class of submarines. So I don't think it was going to be any secret about that. Munitions we've had to restock because we've given a lot, as you'll recall, Jeremy, to Ukraine.
Yep.
We've been helping Ukraine, and we do need to restock our own inventory. So both those things are welcome. But let's get back to Keir Starmer. He talked about ambition. Ambition is not a target. Ambition is not a date. It's an aspiration, right? And he then went on to talk about leading. And here's the problem. Countries on the eastern side of frontier of NATO, right up against Russia, Poland, the Baltic states, they're already spending over 3%. The United States is spending over 3%. So if the Prime Minister really thinks we should be leading, then we should be setting out a timetable to getting to that 3% as quickly as possible, I'd have hoped, within the next few years.
But you would know me, and I know you, I'm an honest man, and I'm straight. The Tory party were in power for 14 years, and even I, a disaffected Tory who voted Tory all their lives and couldn't in the end, was appalled when your past leader, Rishi Sunak, during the election campaign stood up and said, we're going to make it 2.5%. My question to you and the Tories for 14 years, because this started with Theresa May and David Cameron, because it was an easy cut, wasn't it? And I'm sure you fought against it. I'm not sticking up for Keir Starmer, by the way. I think he's odious. No. But the truth of the matter is that the defence services in this country have been an easy target for years, and it's come back and bitten us somewhat, hasn't it?
Look, Jeremy, yes, we were spending much more on defence in the Cold War. Of course we were. We were spending more even at the turn of this century. We were spending 2.7%. It then declined under the Blair government, declined under us. We then hit the financial crisis. We cut it even further. We then slowly, in fact, it was on my watch, we started increasing it again, and we got to the 2%, which was the target, and very slowly it's crept up since then. Now, legitimately, you can say, come on, you saw what Putin was like, you should have increased this earlier. Yes, the military have got a bit hollowed out, we need to spend more. Perfectly true, we should, and we are now. I welcome that. I welcome the defence review today, and I welcome the 2.5%. That's all good news. But, you know, where we are, it is obvious now that Russia is a very real threat, and we need to spend even more. We need to get onto a war footing. Prime Minister's right about that.
Where'd you get the money from, Sir Michael Fallon?
Well, you have to cut other things, I'm afraid. Look, there are lovely things you want to do. Get to net zero, abolish child poverty, pay more in overseas aid. I bet you, Jeremy, that Ukraine signed up to the net zero target. They'd love to do that. They can't. Their country's been invaded. What I'm saying is defence just has to come first.
Has to be a priority.
Well, the priority,
yep.
Before all your other aims.
And interestingly, and you're an ex-Tory MP now, you're missing it, by the way, or not?
No, certainly not. I did my 30 years old, very lucky to get the cabinet and all the rest of it. But, I've done my time.
Listen, that ramshackle bunch now, you're better than that. But let me put this to you. And some people would say, oh, this is an outrageous way of describing it. The irony of the government's long-awaited strategic defence review today being announced, our Prime Minister is finally saying we're going to protect ourselves. The China, Russia, that axis with Iran, the problems that we've got, the world is a different place, right?
right?
But at the same time, our country, and people hate me using this word, is being invaded on a daily basis. I was told today, and you're an ex-defence secretary, that since 2018, and you lot were in power till 2024, 150,000 illegal migrants, Sir Michael Fallon, have come to these shores. Not legal, illegal. There's only 74,000 in the British Army, for God's sake. It's frightening.
It is, and we didn't do nearly enough about stopping it. By the way, I think Labour have found that it isn't actually very easy.
No, agreed.
The best plan we had was actually to deter people. And I think sooner or later, Labour will actually come back to a variation on Rwanda.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to be sent to Rwanda, you might think twice about setting off in that dinghy from the French beach. They scrapped it as soon as they come in.
Can I put this to you? Can I put this to you though? And I've listened to a lot of people say, you know, oh, the French are encouraging them, or we need to do it offshore and all this sort of thing. Do you not think, because I genuinely do, and maybe you'll put me right, that the pull factor, how soft we are in the United Kingdom, this is why I think the Tories are in trouble, and this is why I think reform is soaring, and it might be rhetoric. But what I call the average Briton, Sir Michael, who've paid their taxes, never broken the law, never asked for a payout, when they look at a situation now where they can't see a doctor, they can't get any help, and they feel that they're eighth in the queue, and they see these people coming into this country, not from war-torn countries, because they haven't brought their wives and kids, dropping their passports in the ocean, coming here, getting a hotel, getting whatever, and disappearing. The British people are, I think, frankly, near the end of their tether. You would understand that, right?
I do, and that's why they've been voting for reform and other smaller parties. I think there is a huge amount of frustration, and we need to redress that balance. And it is ironic that they don't want to stay in France. They want to come here. Why is that?
Tense.
Because in the end, you can get here. In the end, if you wait long enough, you can be granted asylum. If you wait long enough, you can enter the jobs market, and you can start sending money back to your folks back home. We're a softer touch than France. We're certainly a softer touch than many European countries now. Why are they coming here? Because it's too easy.
Final question for you. Really appreciate your time. Kemi Badenoch has spent about a year apparently doing a review as to what went wrong. I could have told her on day one. I don't think there's enough meat on the bone. You hear already theories that she will be out. What do you make of Kemi Badenoch, Sir Michael Fallon?
Well, I think we've got to be fair to her and give her a chance. She's only actually been there since the late autumn. She hasn't done a year yet. The Tories have changed their leader often enough. I think we ought to reflect. We ought to reflect more on why we were defeated. But your point actually is, isn't it time we started laying out some new policies, perhaps taking more responsibility for what went wrong, and then laying out some new policies in a way that Margaret Thatcher did after we lost a couple of elections. Back in the 70s, before you were born, Jeremy.
No, don't be ridiculous, man. I'm 60 in 3 weeks. What are you trying to say?
Whatever. But, we lost elections before. You can lose elections, but you can come back. How do you think Labour came back? They had some disastrous defeat. So, we mustn't despair. We can come back, but we need to get to it now and start putting a genuinely new offer in front of the British people.
Really, really good to have you on. Sir Michael Fallon, thank you very much indeed. Former Defence Secretary on Talk Drive.